According to the United Kingdom Soil Association, a leader in organic certification, 95% of people they polled say that their main reason for going organic was to avoid pesticides. However, what many people do not know is that organic foods still contain pesticides, often more so than their genetically modified counterparts. I'm here to convince you that GM crops, or genetically modified crops, are a better alternative to organic crops. I've had years of eating genetically modified foods, but that's not out of the ordinary. That's because almost everything we eat nowadays has some sort of genetic modification to it. Astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson says, "We've been modifying organisms ever since the dawn of agriculture. There are no herds of wild milk cows wandering the countryside. We cultivated, or genetically changed, corn from whatever cavemen ate to these big old sticks of corn that we munch on. This is essentially true for every food in the grocery store." I've researched the recent craze of GM versus organic, and I'm going to tell you what I've learned. Knowing the facts is important when it comes to choosing between GMO and organic, especially when, according to the USDA, organic produce can cost between 7 and 82% more than their non-organic counterparts. Many are making the switch to certified organic produce. Possibly some of you already have. Let's investigate whether this dramatic price difference is worth it or not. Genetically modified crops are better for the environment. One reason for this is because GMOs require less pesticide than organic crops. For example, one type of genetically modified crop is Bt corn. Bt corn produces a protein, Bt delta endotoxin, which produces a protein that repels pests. So, according to this graph, you can see in 1995, from 2014, these farmers surveyed recorded their use of Bt corn, which you can see by percent of hectare present of the genetically modified corn in green, and in blue is their recorded insecticide use by kilograms per hectare. So as you can see, as they use more and more percent Bt corn, their insecticide use drops dramatically from, on average, 0.2 kilograms per hectare to almost zero. This means that corn is able to grow pest-free without much use of pesticides. According to PBS, between 1996 and 2011, Bt corn reduced insecticide use in corn production by 45% worldwide, which is equivalent to 110 million pounds, or roughly the equivalent of 20,000 Olympic swimming pools of pure insecticide not used. The University of Virginia also says, unsurprisingly, maize farmers who use the insect-resistant seeds use significantly less insecticide, about 11% less than farmers who did not use their genetically modified maize. GMOs also require less land to grow on, and they yield more food for that land. Forbes magazine says, in 2014, if GMO crops had not been available, farmers would have needed to cultivate 51 million more acres of land to produce the same amount of corn, soybeans, cotton, and canola. That's equivalent to all of the farmland in Iowa and Missouri, 12% of the arable land in the U.S. As you can see by this graph, by 2050, there's projected to be a 20% population increase, which means higher demand for food, fiber, and fuel. Unless you want to tear down more rainforests to produce crops, the best way to do this, to feed this new amount of people, is through GMOs. Forbes says as well, another study published by PLOS1 found that GMO crops have yielded farmers 22% more food. Also, GMOs require less tilling than organic crops. Tilling is the process of aerating the ground, which is not natural, and many bugs die from this because they're not used to the changing dirt mixture. To some organisms living in the deep ground, oxygen is toxic for them. So when you till, this kills many of the bacteria that help nutriate the soil. No-till agriculture keeps carbon in the soil, and because it requires fewer field passes, it uses less fuel than tillage as well. In 2012 alone, the amount of CO2 saved by using herbicide-tolerant biotech crops that help facilitate no-till was equal to removing every single car from the streets of London for 5 years. This comes from Biotech Now. Additionally, up to 50,000 square kilometers of topsoil, an area about the size of Costa Rica, is lost every year due to wind and water erosion. By using herbicide-tolerant crops, farmers don't need to till the soil to remove weeds, so soil retains its structure and erosion is reduced. That also comes from Biotech Now. GMOs require less pesticides, less land, and less tilling, and they still have a higher yield than organic crops. Not only are GM crops better for the environment, but they have economic benefits as well. GM produce is cheaper than organic foods, which helps poor families. According to the Wall Street Journal, GM technology has helped keep the price of staple crops lower by as much as 15 to 30%. Since genetically modified foods help crops grow easier and makes food cheaper, it helps the poor a lot, according to Forbes magazine. A life-changing strain of rice in Africa, which is enriched with vitamin A, helps feed African families that have vitamin A deficiency, which leads to blindness. This wouldn't be possible without GM crops. Additionally, farmers can produce more crops with less costs. According to the USDA, adopting conservation tillage can save at least 3.5 gallons of fuel per acre because they're spending less time on tractors. Also, farmers who use improved seeds and grow biotech crops have seen substantial net economic benefits of up to $14 billion in 2010 and $78.4 billion for a 15-year period for the whole farming community, according to PG Economics. GMOs are cheaper to produce, they're cheaper to buy, and this helps both the farmers and the grocery store shoppers, leaving a positive economic impact. Not only are GM crops better for the economy, but they have health benefits as well. GM produce is higher in nutritional value. All crops we consume now are a result of selective breeding, which is a form of genetic modification, and this includes organic crops as well. However, crops are being genetically engineered at the gene level to have enhanced nutritional content. The rice I mentioned earlier is fortified with vitamin A to help combat vitamin A deficiency. As well, modern potatoes are modified to reduce fat absorption, and they have a higher distribution of starches. GM crops require less pesticide use, which means lesser chance of pesticide consumption or poisoning. According to the USDA, roughly 85% of foods test positive for pesticide residue. Though they're at safe levels, the less pesticide being sprayed on crops means less pesticide residue on produce. Pesticides are among the leading causes of death by self-poisoning, in particular low and middle income countries. Less pesticide use means less of a chance of accidental farmhand pesticide poisoning, and that's from Forbes. In review, GM crops are a better alternative to certified organic crops. They're better for the environment, the economy, and the consumer, which is you. With all the rage that is organic foods, remember to keep in mind that just because something is natural does not mean it's better. Next time you're at the store, reconsider grabbing that certified organic or GMO-free labeled food item. The environment, your wallet, and your health will thank you.